storms along the Gulf Coast, and this tropical moisture is going to keep things soggy. Jordan?
Man, well,
during the week, not during your holiday weekend, I think is what most people are wanting, Steph. Thanks to our virtual view technology, I'm standing in Pittsburgh, where clouds are going to turn to rain and storms eventually. We've got the daytime heat. It's going to be another hot day. The humidity is sticking around. That's all going to help fire up the thunderstorms. We're going to have damaging wind gusts, possible hail also maybe. So you want to be on alert. Make sure you have some way to get those weather alerts. Now, the Pirates are hosting the Cubs for an afternoon matinee, so keep an eye on that game, because it could be impacted by some of these storms. Starting off our morning, temperatures ranging from the mid-60s south there in Wharton up to Pittsburgh. You're in the mid-70s, and you are feeling it. It's feeling a little balmy out there. We're continuing that stretch of heat and humidity across this area. So starting out your morning all quiet, as we mentioned, and really heading into your lunch hour, early afternoon, mostly quiet. I will tell you, the models are having a really hard time exactly when they want to initialize these storms. Most likely this afternoon, you can see it could be around 5 o'clock. I would just keep an eye to the sky. You've got plenty of heat and humidity, and with that boundary kind of sagging southward, could help to get some of those storms going. You'll notice not wide coverage of storminess, but nonetheless, it's still in the forecast for some of us. So just keep an eye on that if you have something planned for your afternoon. Let's take a look at Ohio, from Dayton down to Cincinnati, Columbus. Look at those temperatures, mid and upper 70s. It is balmy out there, right? So you probably feel that you have that possibility for storms later on today. Mostly quiet for a good chunk of your day. Here's 3 o'clock. We really haven't seen a lot, but you'll notice 5. Trying to get our afternoon started, and we've got those storms bubbling up. As mentioned, they could be a little feisty, maybe some damaging winds, a bit of hail, and some heavy rain certainly possible. Again, not, a widespread area covered in storms, but the ones that do develop could pack a little bit of a punch. Let's head to Philly, where you're in the mid-70s. Again, this is kind of the same story across this region. You've got that heat, you've got that humidity, but we're getting enough of a little disturbance to kind of bobble down through these cities that is going to bring us that possibility for those stronger storms. Overnight tonight is when we're watching this for Philly. So maybe you're going to bed, and then by midnight you're waking up with these storms rolling through, waking you up, lightning, thunder, heavy rain, all of that. Now, Jordan, what you'll notice about a lot of these storms, it's not like we're storming all day. It's not like it's stormy everywhere, but it's more of that kind of pop-up, move through nature. So I think people are going to have to just keep a close eye on the sky and kind of plan their day around that.
I wish it was happening midday, because the
drop in the temperatures and the drop in the humidity. Meanwhile, if you go south to, say, the Gulf Coast, and that increase in atmospheric moisture that we have to work with. So you can kind of see our area of disturbances blowing up here over the northwestern Gulf. Quiet start to most of our morning, especially our inland areas of Texas. But what's going to happen as we head through the day today is that moisture is going to continue to be steered along the coast and then eventually inland, and that is going to help to ramp up our storm and shower chances. So we've got this upper level disturbance. It was moved over Texas as of yesterday, and it's been hanging out. And then we're going to get some support from the mid and lower levels as well. So all of that's going to come together and bring us rounds of heavy rainfall. We've got tons of moisture to work with as we head through tomorrow into the weekend as well. You can see that low level spin, that tropical moisture, and that is going to bring us that chance for heavy rain, ponding on the roadways. Of course, with the holiday weekend, people are trying to get out there. As Steph just mentioned, you want to soak up that last little bit of summer, but here's what we're dealing with. So this afternoon, you'll notice numerous scattered showers, heavy rain, a few storms there as well. We continue to see those storms kind of rotate through. That is the circulative nature of that low that we're watching. And then into Thursday, same thing, southern Louisiana getting in on that rain and storm action. It's really a Gulf coastal thing with that influx of moisture from the Texas Gulf Coast across Louisiana over into Mobile Bay as well. And then you can see Saturday, we are looking at that across the lower Mississippi River Valley, much of Texas dealing with rain and storms. And guys, Sunday, again, I know it's not going to be a complete washout for your weekend, but you are going to have to plan around the weather to get your holiday weekend stuff in. And then, Steph, you'll notice some of the higher totals here along the Gulf Coast. I think that we could see some of those totals maybe bumped up with some locally higher amounts, certainly. Well, ahead traveling today could run into some of those storms that we're dealing with. Right now, looking at the map, we've got a couple gold bubbles showing up here, having some delays around the Chicago area, Houston as well, and then down around Central Florida, Orlando Airport, maybe some delays, where we've had those kind of rounds of storms for, days now. The travel delay issue starts to kind of ramp up. The possibility for delays moving through the rest of today, Chicago, Tampa, Houston, all the same places that we're kind of starting out with some delays. You could still be dealing with with some of those storms, especially bubbling up this afternoon for places like Tampa. You guys know how it goes. You get in your rainy pattern each afternoon, and that starts to impact that those flights, right? And then it's like a domino effect because the flight coming or leaving is late, or the flight coming is late, and then all the flights are getting a little bit delayed. So hopefully that doesn't happen for you today. We've got that possibility for weather-related delays, whether you're flying into Cleveland, Chicago, St. Louis, maybe some for you as well, especially if any of those storms start to get feisty, which is expected. You can see our risk for severe weather here highlighted in the red. Cities like Columbus, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, all the way out to the coast. You've got that possibility for the damaging wind gusts like Steph was just talking about, the possibility for a bit of hail as well. Some of those are going to reach that severe limit, and regardless of reaching severe limits, some heavy rain, which could impact your roadway travel. Let's look a bit farther south. You'll notice it's kind of like an outline all around, a highlight around the Gulf of Mexico, right? We've got plenty of tropical moisture from the Gulf Coast of Texas all the way around to Florida, so expecting some flight delays there for Florida, but even back up into, say, San Antonio, maybe some flight delays for you guys weather-related. New Orleans, you'll have to keep an eye on that as you're going to have some rounds of showers and storms bubbling up. We've got that possibility for very heavy rain at times. We've got the setup and an increase in moisture in our atmosphere. That is going to mean that possibility for ponding on, say, I-10 is going to slow you down a little bit, or hopefully it's slowing everyone down. You don't want to be going too fast if you're dealing with that heavy rain. And then that possibility for some severe storms across the Dakotas today as well. Isolated tornado risk, but here once again the main risk for some of that gusty wind, hail, and maybe a bit of flash flooding. Jordan.
Yeah, this weekend. I know it's bad because this weekend everyone wants to be out and about for the holiday, but hopefully they'll get more rain to help the drought.
I'd say maybe good thing it's like a 3-day weekend for a lot of people, right? Because maybe if it rains Saturday and Sunday, you still have Monday to make it up. Or you know, one of those days. You don't have to have all three, especially when you're in drought and you could use a little bit of rain. Now, a lot of us might not want to be out because for a lot of us, we are dealing with the heat. Just look at today. We've got 156 million people above average. You can see some of that heat centered especially across eastern portions of the country, over for portions of the plains as well. But what you'll notice is that by Labor Day, a front moves through. It takes that cooler air that we're seeing in the west now, and it moves it into the Ohio Valley, really from the plains to the Ohio Valley up into the northeast. So by Labor Day, you're going to see those temperatures taking a little bit of a swing and going from above average to below average. You'll get a nice little cool down there if you've been waiting for that. That risk for severe storms today, as Jordan pointed out, this is kind of our system that's going to be moving through, bringing us some cooler air, but as it does, it's going to help to get some of those storms going. Along 94, we have that possibility for large hail, damaging wind gusts, and an isolated tornado can't be ruled out. We've got some heavy rain possible with these storms as well. So let's time it out for you. All quiet to start your morning. We're heading into the afternoon, still mostly quiet. It's really the evening that we start to see this taking shape. You can see kind of a linear formation here, damaging winds, certainly one of the things that we're going to be watching for, but sometimes you can get some weak spin ups in there as well heading into the nighttime hours, so have some way to get those alerts. We're kicking off our early Thursday morning with some of those storms around too. So taking a look at Thursday where we have that risk, you'll watch as this risk that we're seeing over the Dakotas today progresses eastward into cities like Minneapolis by tomorrow, and then Friday you can see that stretching all the way into places like Cleveland as we track that cooler air and that system moving eastward. All right, let's talk about what you might be dealing with if you're traveling today, because some of us could be dealing with some weather-related delays. As we've seen, it's the summer season, right? It kind of coincides when everyone's trying to travel, especially as we have a long Labor Day weekend coming up, but also when you've got more storms bubbling up, especially for the Gulf Coast, for places like Houston, San Antonio, down through Orlando. You guys know it. You have your afternoon storms that could delay any of your flights. Chicago, St. Louis, we are expecting some weather-related airport delays possible there as well. Over into Cleveland too, where you've got some feisty storms that are going to be moving through. The highlighted region shows where we could have some severe weather, and we're taking that from I-75 all the way to the coast along that I-70 corridor, Columbus to Baltimore. Maybe some damaging wind gusts, a little bit of hail, and some heavy rain certainly possible. That is going to be kind of sporadic in nature and bubbling up afternoon, evening into the overnight, so keep an eye on the sky. Just take a look at where we see all of our possible kind of delays here. So the green is pretty good. You shouldn't really have to worry about that, right? But when you start to get into, say, the yellowish color, Houston, New Orleans, Tampa, all the South Florida airports, you're going to have that possibility for some delays. And Jordan, as we know, it's not always about where you're flying from. Sometimes it's about where your plane is coming from,
Exactly right.
or, you know, where it came from earlier. So we could definitely see those domino.
Well, we know temperatures are going to...
Lines are quickly shrinking, and no species tells the story of sea level rise better than the salt marsh sparrow. Experts fear that the bird could be extinct by 2050, which would make them the first casualty directly due to sea level rise. Here's a sneak peek at how scientists are trying to bring them back from the brink. Right where we need it.
I know.
No, we love that. Well, thanks to our virtual view technology, I love this. I'm kicking off my morning in Pittsburgh, where clouds are going to turn into rain and storms. So don't forget that umbrella as you're walking into work. Take it with you. We've got the daytime heat, the humidity that's going to help fire up the thunderstorms, damaging wind gusts, hail, all of that possible. So stay on alert. We've also got the Pirates hosting the Cubs for an afternoon matinee. That game could be impacted. If you're headed to that game, you could be impacted by that possibility. Storm. Sun is up and shining bright. Feeling pretty comfortable as you look towards, say, Somerset, where you're at 67. But that 74 in Pittsburgh proper, it is feeling a little warm. Wheeling, same thing. You've got dew points in the mid to upper 60s across this region. So it's a bit muggy as you're kicking off your morning. You can feel that moisture in the air that this kind of bobbling front is going to help to use and get some of those storms going. Now, as we look at this, you can see 5 o'clock. We're not seeing widespread. Everyone's not seeing storms. Some of us will have sunshine throughout the entire day. But where we do get some of those storms to kick up later on this afternoon as you're getting off of work, maybe along that, say, I-70 corridor, could be some heavy rain, some damaging wind gusts, and a bit of hail certainly possible, and those storms could reach severe limits. Heading over to, say, Dayton, down through Cincinnati, mid to upper 70s. You guys have a heat advisory through 8 p.m. this evening because it's going to feel like the triple digits. Actual temperatures in the mid-90s. That humidity makes it feel even hotter. That humidity also helps those storms to get going and brings us that chance for some of that heavier rain. So keep an eye on that. From Columbus down through Wilmington, Cincinnati, you could have rounds of storms heading into the overnight as well. So just do know that any of those storms that get kicked off, I know it doesn't look like there's going to be, you know, a crazy amount or a crazy coverage of storms for these cities. But as Steph said, you get under one of those storms and it hits severe limits, and that could ruin your day. It could ruin your afternoon. Let's head to Philly, where it is going to be another very hot day. You guys are still kind of under the influence of the heat of that ridge, but we're also getting that chance for storms as that front is bobbling around and we get some of that energy to move through. So Philly, you're quiet most of the day. It's not until overnight tonight that the storm chances start to increase, blasting through some gusty winds, some very heavy rain could wake you up. I'm sure we're going to have some nice thunder boomers within that as well. So if you're like me, Jordan, and you are the lightest sleeper in the world, I love a good nighttime rain, but as soon as it thunders once, I'm wide awake.
Yep.
And then I'm looking at the radar and I'm not going back to sleep. So put your earplugs in.
These storms could go severe.
I'm not a pumpkin spice girly.
I am not.
You're not a pumpkin spice girly? No.
I'm not.
No.
I feel like people are going to start bringing it out.
I'll skip straight to, what is it? It's like the peppermint, mocha, chocolate peppermint.
Okay.
Or something.
You're going right into the Christmas
Straight
season.
to Christmas. But, you know, while we're talking about skipping right into fall in some places like much of the Gulf Coast are going to be like, what are you talking about? We have tropical summertime type downpours that we're dealing with, and that is kind of going to be the story over the next several days. Now, you can see our kind of area of disturbed weather that we've got out over the Gulf already starting off our morning. It is fairly quiet as you look farther inland. We do have a little bit of rain there to the north of Corpus Christi, but otherwise it's going to be much more active later today and into tomorrow. Here's the setup. We've got this upper level low that's been kind of hanging out there since yesterday. The circulation around that helps to pull in the tropical moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and then we get some support from this low level spin, this area in the lower levels of the atmosphere, a little bit of low level action, bringing in that tropical moisture, bringing us the rounds of heavy rain, and all of that's going to come together to kind of be a washout over the next couple of days. You see it here. Here's this afternoon. You've got some very heavy rain along the Texas Gulf Coast, but stretching all the way into San Antonio. You guys will be dealing with that as well. We've got rounds of rain. When you have kind of this circulation coming off the water like the Gulf of Mexico, a very broad circulation, but it just kind of throws showers over the same areas. So we could certainly start to see some of that adding up in a big way. And Jordan, it's not just today and tomorrow into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Much of this region is going to have to plan around their weather for the holiday weekend.
I'm just glad Texas.
IFU and IFO, an identified flying object. also known as the plane. Hopefully you get on it. You're not dealing with delays. We could be dealing with some delays around the Gulf Coast, though. Chicago, you've got some storms around starting off your morning. As we know, all it takes is, what, a couple delays back to back, whether it's from where your flight is coming or going, and then they start to mount up. We should start to see weather getting better for Chicago later on today, but Tampa, you know what's going to happen. Houston, we get those afternoon storms, especially during the summertime pattern, and we start to see those flight delays adding up pretty quickly. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on once again. Now, again, we've got that possibility for some delays, mainly this morning for places like Chicago, that chance for a few storms in St. Louis later on. Cleveland, I'd say you've got a chance for those weather-related delays, whether it's with the heavy rain, reduced visibility, maybe a little bit of storming action. Some of those storms could be reaching severe limits. You can see kind of between I-70, that I-80, I-90 corridor that you've got going on there, places like Pittsburgh, that possibility for some severe storms heading through the afternoon. Damaging wind gusts certainly possible, heavy rain, a bit of hail too. Around the Gulf Coast, we are going to see those storms building in, especially this afternoon. New Orleans, San Antonio, and then all across Florida. If you're traveling into or out of Florida, maybe you're kicking off your Labor Day weekend a little bit early, you could be dealing with those flight delays, but at summertime, at any point, you could be dealing with those flight delays as well. The travel forecast for I-10, heavy rain at times, a bit of lightning with these storms and scattered showers. So, Jordan, we are watching an influx of tropical moisture that's going to be kind of plaguing us across Texas today and tomorrow. And, of course, we're also keeping our eye on what's going on in the tropics now.
Yeah, I mean, this whole...
Closely there, and still time to enjoy some summer nights. Let's get you your bonfire forecast presented by Hershey's S'mores. Some places it's going to be a little cooler. Maybe you'll want some of that fire to keep you just a bit warmer. In Albany, New York, perfect weather dropping down into the lower 70s. That is going to be for your Sunday evening. So perfectly comfortable out there to enjoy that s'mores, right? Now, where we're definitely seeing it a little bit cooler, and you might want some bonfire action, that is in Bemidji. Look at these temperatures. Absolutely beautiful evening for your Sunday. We're going from the lower 60s and sunny at 7, which is really, really pleasant, right, to the lower 50s, which is starting to get a little cool in St. Louis. We also have those mild temperatures and a perfect Sunday evening.
Going into the weekend, too.
Yeah, if your grass is crispy or maybe you have a garden, you're like, oh, we really need that rain. We don't want the storms, but we'll take some of that rain. A lot of us also just waiting on a cool down, which we are going to eventually get thanks to this summer front swinging through. So you can see where we've got the below average temperatures. Those are going to push their way eastward slowly. And so where we're seeing 156 million people with above average temperatures, eventually that's going to change. And we are going to have temperatures below average by Labor Day, stretching from portions of the southern plains all the way up through the northeast. Meanwhile, you'll notice that those temperatures kind of flip-flop, and we've got the above average temperatures back over portions of the Rockies, the northern plains as well. Now, as that cold air interacts with the warmer air mass that's in place, it's going to bring us some storms, and that is what we have for the risk for severe storms today across the Dakotas. We've got damaging winds, hail, and an isolated tornado can't completely be ruled out. We've got a pretty robust kind of change in the guard coming when you're talking about that colder air move in. So that is going to bring us that risk for some of those stronger storms later on, especially this afternoon, this evening. So quiet throughout the day. Here we are through your afternoon. You start to see things kind of bubbling up 5, 6 o'clock. But here's 8, 9 o'clock. You're seeing that kind of line segment there, which is quite often indicative of maybe some damaging winds, but then also that possibility for some more cellular mode storms, which could result in maybe an isolated tornado warning or two. So keep an eye on those storms for the evening into the overnight hours tonight across the Dakotas. Tomorrow, we watch as that risk shifts eastward along with that cooler air and that frontal boundary. So tomorrow, places like Minneapolis, northern Iowa, you have that risk for severe storms. And by Friday, we see that stretching from Alpena all the way down through Indianapolis, Cleveland included in that as well for that risk for some storms. That is all coming along with our front and that cooler air as it shifts southward. And this is what could be impacting some of our Labor Day weekend plans. All right, we got a long weekend coming up, so maybe you are kicking off your travel a little bit early for that long weekend. If you are, you could be running into some weather-related delays, especially along the Gulf Coast heading through this afternoon. Of course, across Florida with those storms bubbling up, you've got your afternoon diurnally daytime heating-driven storms, and then some storms this morning are around Chicago that should move out. Did you know that the second most requested drink on flights is tomato juice? Apparently people really like, yeah, right behind water and then tomato juice.
Just tomato juice, though, or anything.
I mean, I'm assuming that people might be adding something onto it, but Tomato juice.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm always like, all right, that's interesting. So if you're flying and you want your tomato juice today, you might be dealing with a few delays, but I will say better weather as we head through the day in Chicago, and then those storm chances go up in Cleveland, St. Louis. You've got some of those storms bubbling up as well, so you could have some travel-related delays. Now let's go from the skyways and everyone's tomato juice to the roadways, and we've got that possibility for strong storms from the coast here all the way back into the I-75 corridor. Places like Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh could have some gusty winds, some hail, and then of course around the Gulf Coast, Jordan, we've got that very heavy rain that's going to be possible with all of this tropical moisture.
Got to keep an eye on the Gulf.
Yeah, you don't want to let your guard down. Well, at the top of the hour on America's Morning Headquarters, severe storms, some of our holiday plans as well, rounds of showers and storms, especially along the Gulf Coast with tropical moisture. It is going to be soggy out there, Jordan.
Yes, it is.
Morning in Pittsburgh, you've got some clouds around, but that's eventually going to turn into rain and storms. You're going to have that daytime heating, that humidity that you're probably feeling as soon as you start your morning, helping to kick off those thunderstorms, damaging wind gusts, hail, all of those are possible, so make sure you're staying alert. We've also got the Pirates hosting the Cubs for an afternoon matinee, so keep an eye on that game. Every time I see matinee in that script, I want to say manatee, and then I have to correct myself. So afternoon matinee, not manatee, and you could have some storms around for that. We are not looking at kind of huge wide coverage of storms though, so you might be okay there. You just have to keep an eye on it. We're already seeing some showers to the north and west of Youngstown, Meadville, but you'll notice mostly we're seeing enough sunshine. Mid 70s to upper 60s is where we're starting off with our temperatures for the morning, but it's going to heat up. It's going to be another pretty hot and humid day. We don't really see much out of that first round of showers that's currently northwest of Youngstown now, but we start to see some of these storms bubbling up 5, 6 o'clock. So right as we're getting off of work, especially along that interstate I-70, you could have some heavier rain. As you watch this, though, you'll notice it's not some widespread, everyone's getting storminess. Some of us that you're seeing here will stay dry pretty much all day, but those storms that do get going could pack a little bit of a punch. Meanwhile, we're already heating up. Dayton, you're at 77 degrees. Still a nice, cool temperature to start off your morning in Hillsborough. Cincinnati, you're at 74. You've got a heat advisory in effect there as you're going to feel so hot through the afternoon, feeling like the triple digits with those temperatures getting up there and that humidity helping to fuel those storms. Here's 6 o'clock. You can see some of those storms beginning to bubble up. Now, I would say you don't want to take exactly where this model is showing the storms. Just know across this region, you've got that chance for storms mid to late afternoon into the evening, and some of those could have those severe wind gusts within them, could get a bit of hail, and certainly some heavy rain is possible. Kicking off our morning with some cloud cover around in Philly. Not a bad start to your morning, but we're continuing. A lot of these cities that we're talking about that are getting some of these severe storms are kind of right on the edge of that heat dome, so you're still pretty hot, but then you're also getting that chance for storms because of that boundary kind of wobbling and dipping south. So here are our storms bubbling up around midnight there in Reading. You can see a large cluster of storminess moving through Philly overnight tonight after midnight. Certainly, Jordan, gusty winds, some hail. Hopefully, you can sleep through that and it doesn't get too severe, though.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is during the day.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Except you will be dealing with some rain, so you're diving into pleasantness. You ride that log ride at some of the amusement parks, and when you hit the bottom, it splashes. It's kind of like those temperatures dropping as that front is moving through and bringing us rain, right? Well, no front here, but certainly enough different atmospheric dynamics that we're going to have rounds of heavy rain. You can see that heavy rain moving in off the Gulf of Mexico. I think we have a shot here looking out from Galveston, out toward the Gulf of Mexico. Do we want to pull that, or are we just going to keep it in the side? Okay, we'll just keep action, and that is going to become more widespread this afternoon and into tomorrow with all of our different dynamics that we've got going on. We've also got some rain moving in to the east of New Orleans. New Orleans, you could get some showers and storms out of that. Not just rain, but quite a bit of lightning with all of this activity that you're seeing that's going to be pushing in. We've got an upper level low that's hanging out over Texas. The spin around that is helping to bring in the moisture, but then also in the lower levels of the atmosphere, you've got some spin that help to get those showers and storms going, help to transport the moisture out of the Gulf and then up over the Gulf coastal region from Corpus Christi all all the way through places like New Orleans, Mobile, getting in on that. So here are our future forecasts for today. The chance for storms and heavy rain, you'll notice really taking aim here along the Gulf Coast of Texas. Some of those showers and storms will slide up into the hill country as well for the afternoon and the second portion of the day. Now, where you need the rain, you'll take it. You just don't want to deal with round and round of rain, especially in cities like, say, New Orleans, where it can flood pretty easily if you get too much rain. Steph, it's going to be one of those weekends, one of those holiday weekends where you have to plan around the weather. And for some of us, it's going to be a bit of a washout.
That it is.
And then your flight is delayed, and that next flight is delayed. Then your travel day today could be terrible. Meanwhile, someone else is like, oh, no, it was great. It was such an easy travel day on Wednesday. Now, we had some storms moving through the Chicagoland area earlier. Detroit, you've got some storms later, so some maybe weather-related travel delays there. And then around the Gulf Coast, Houston, I'm keeping an eye on you today. Orlando area airports could certainly see some weather-related delays with the storminess that we have showing up really all around the Gulf Coast states, and then some of those severe storms that we have possible later on today. If you're flying out of Tampa later today, you could be dealing with some of those delays. Detroit, same thing. Some of these storms could be getting a little bit feisty, which is going to, of course, cause those flights to have to take off a little bit later, or maybe weather's fine wherever you are. The flight is trying to get to you and you're waiting because it was delayed where it's at. That possibility for weather-related delays for cities like St. Louis as well. Cleveland, you're going to get in on that with that possibility for damaging wind gusts, hail, and some heavy rain. The highlighted area is where we have that risk for severe weather, especially the darker red from I-75 east to the coast. So Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Philly, you're all included in that for those storms getting a little feisty later on. And then Jordan, we're keeping an eye on all of that tropical moisture around the Gulf Coast states. That's going to bring us some issues. And then tropical entities elsewhere, maybe not entities, but tropical things to watch.
Yeah,
anyways.
potential.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Time of year as well. Let's get you your back-to-school forecast presented by Target. Now, if your kids aren't back in the classroom already, chances are they'll head back just after Labor Day. So let's take a look at what you can expect. Some of us are going to be dealing with storms. Some of us are dealing with heat, like in Atlanta, where it's going to be a hot one. Today, the sun will be shining. We're getting up into the low to mid-90s, and it's going to feel even hotter than that. In Chicago, kicking off our day with some storms around, and then some cloud cover for much of the day. As they're getting off the school bus, some hit or miss storms are possible, so keep an eye on that. We don't want to leave the kids standing out in lightning or thunder, any of that storm possibilities. In Minneapolis, look at this perfectly comfortable start to your morning. Temperatures warming into the mid-70s. It is going to be a beautiful afternoon for you in Minneapolis before even cooler air moves in tomorrow. In NYC, another perfect day.
Be a potential cool down.
A lot of people are going to be really happy with that rain and also that cool down, because we've been sweating it out. I mean, still heat advisories up for portions of the Ohio Valley, and especially if you're kind of right on the fringe of all of that heat, and then you're still getting some of the storms. It's like, wait, could a real front just move through already? And that is exactly what's going to happen, as Jordan was just talking about. Okay, so look at today. 156 million people above average. The lower Mississippi Valley all the way through the mid-Atlantic up into New England, portions of the Rockies here, but you'll see where our cooler air is. The northern Rockies, much of Idaho below average, in portions of the Pacific Northwest, or at least inland anyways, below average. But we watch all that cooler air sink south and eastward, and it fills in across the Great Lakes region, the southern plains all the way up into the northeast. So by Labor Day, we have a little bit of a flip-flop of our regime here, and we see the cooler temperatures where it has been hotter than it should be. Now, as that cooler air blasts in and moves through, it provides the lift that we need to get some stronger storms. So we're going to keep an eye on that risk for severe storms across the Dakotas today. Well, really tonight. You're all quiet for much of the day today. It's not until we get into the late afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock, that we start to see the first inkling of some of that action. And then 8, 9 o'clock, you can see that we start to see some of those storms bubbling up there in that line segment. Damaging winds and hail are possible, but an isolated tornado, some storms with a little bit of rotation, can't completely be ruled out there today. Now, tomorrow we watch as all of that risk shifts eastward as that cold air sinks eastward as well, or southeastward really. Brainerd down through Minneapolis, that possibility for severe storms tomorrow, Friday. We see that across much of the Great Lakes region, places like Columbus, Ohio getting in on that as well. And that front just keeps moving south and east as we head toward the weekend. All right, we've got a long holiday weekend coming up, so maybe you're planning on doing a little travel, kicking it off on this Wednesday. If so, you could be dealing with some weather-related delays, whether it's along the Gulf Coast, where we've got that chance for storms, especially ramping up throughout the day today, or maybe across the the Great Lakes region, places like Chicago, Detroit, that possibility for some weather-related delays today. Anywhere you see the gold bubbles, that is where we think you could have some of those maybe storms, some heavy rain impacting some of those flight takeoff times. That risk for severe storms stretching from the I-70 corridor there just to the west of Cleveland and Columbus, or I-75 corridor, excuse me, from the Cleveland and Columbus are included in that. The possibility for severe storms with damaging wind gusts, hail, all of that is included. Now, as we look around the Gulf Coast, of course, Houston, you're already seeing some of those storms move onshore. That could be impacting you. San Antonio, your risk for storms increasing later. New Orleans, you're going to be in a bit of a stormy pattern today, but especially look at this. All of our Florida area airports have that chance for some weather-related delays, as it is going to be still continuing with that stormy pattern we've been stuck in. If you're on that I-10 corridor, Jordan, today you could be dealing with some heavy rounds of rain today and tomorrow. Texas is in for quite a wet time.
You know what? One of the